Welcome to the second session on QCAA syllabus and assessment. Well, this second part looks at more detail in terms of the assessment process. Just to recap, no longer do schools have work programs where they contextualize the content of the syllabus. The syllabus is very prescribed. Also, what is prescribed is the assessment type, the weightings, and how you mark it. So let's dive into the assessment per se. So here the key website from the QCAA, and I ask you to thoroughly have a look at those things. And I've created a little bingo when you can, a bit of a checkpoint if you'd like to tick off when you can answer those questions and how they are different to previously and what the new arrangements are. We're going to do a bit of a comparison if you're familiar. Although when you graduate, everyone will be operating under the new arrangements. Following through, this video highlights the key differences and the key processes, so worth to have a look and take some notes. The assessment process has a number of terms to understand what endorsement looks like, what confirmation looks like, what scaling and ratification also looks like. They're the new terms that you may need to become familiar with in this process. External assessment. Significant parts of the syllabus now have compulsory external assessment. Most subjects are 25% of the load. However, the maths and science has 50% of their rank score is the external assessment. So understanding what the external assessment is about is a very critical part of your role in the senior schooling context. Asking some questions there for you. I'll let you go to those answers. But this is a graphic which highlights it really clearly. The syllabus is prescribed and written, 4 units and so on. Assessments, there's 3 internal and 1 external. As I said, worth 25 or 50%. Now, when a school writes its assessment, previously it could do that as long as it was deemed by a peer review at the end of a year that it was appropriate and met the syllabus goals. Now, however, it must be pre-endorsed. So you develop it, you forward it to the QCAA, and an expert panel will actually say the assessment's appropriate or it's not appropriate. If it's not appropriate, go back and redesign it. But there also will be previously endorsed assessments that you can take, in a sense, off the shelf. The confirmation process is when you put it into endorsement and it gets confirmed as a valid piece of assessment. You then can use it in your context. External exams are the other piece, 25 or 50% of assessment. So your confirmed assessments, plus which are internal, plus your external assessments, then come to be the final score. It then goes off to QCAA, and that becomes what it becomes. The grades are analysed, they are rescaled, and then they're combined together to produce a final result. And those results will then go towards your rank points for your students. You know, that process is, I call it a bit of a dark art. You know, what is it? How much? How do your scores get manipulated? And that process is really, this stage has not become a public process, and it will change from year to year. So there's some skepticism and some concern about that, although it has been approved as being a robust process. What does it mean for you as a teacher? It means that you teach well and you understand the genre of assessment. What does it need and how it fits in? So in the notes, you scaffold towards the process alongside the information and content, so that your students have the best opportunity to perform at the external exam and your internal assessment, so that your results will basically optimize your students' abilities in terms of the final result of the article, which will come out here. So nothing to be scared about, but it is to be aware of. Critical change to the assessment is this called ISMG. Now, IS is Instrument Specific Marking Guide. Previously, teachers wrote an assessment task and had a task sheet and then had also different criteria which they then used to determine the outcome and the grade on that assessment. What I have here is a collection of ISMGs. Now, they are prescribed. So not only is the task prescribed and the format prescribed, how you mark it is also prescribed. And where's the review of that? Well, Previously, it was a panel review every year on your work. This time, there's the auditing will occur, and auditing will actually look at your assessment task, how you have applied the instrument-specific marking guide to that assessment piece, and whether they agree on it. Contrary to previously, if a peer review panel wanted to say, hey, they wanted to review your mark, they would suggest a different rank on this semester for a student's performance on the basis of the submissions that you put in. You could have a discussion and an appeal process. Under this process, there's no appeal. In other words, what the external expert panel determines is the mark that your student gains, irrespective of what you previously marked. So there's a high degree, high stakes in that regard. This talks about contrasting similarities, because it's good to understand how things are different perhaps when you went through. I'll go through and have a look at the subject examples. You're familiar with that previously. But they're the assessment parts to the external. Now notice it's on units 3 and 4. That's different. In other words, the whole years of work in year 12 is now going to be assessed by external assessment. That raises the stakes, and it's a change. Whereas everything was unitized to a semester basis, now in the external exam it is a whole year basis. And that will drive assessments so that your internal assessments will mirror very much what year 12 is. And other schools are also implementing backward design and putting that into the year 10 program, and even some into the year 9 program. So what's happened is the senior assessment tail is wagging the dog of assessment across the whole secondary context. So we go into more detail. This is talking about scaling and so on. I think I skipped a video. Really interesting to see how the ATAR, Australian Tertiary Assessment rank, is determined in that process. It gives some good things. But then interesting, the scaling, that art of that. Now we've finished with an interesting video, because I want to give you some confidence. At the end of the day, it's about you as a teacher working with your class, which will determine the optimum results. So yes, you need to understand assessment and how it works, the mechanics of the assessment, the genre of assessment, and the prescribed nature of the assessment. But at the end of the day, you're the teacher, and a good teacher always optimizes their student learning. So I hope you will get stuck into assessment. It's an important change, important role in the year 11 and subject process.